Hi there, my name is Laura, and welcome to Equestrian Skill Builders Rider Position Show, where we discuss riding position topics and share ideas and exercises to help you and your riders. If you'd like to improve your riding and training, win more ribbons at your next door show, and who doesn't like to do that, or generally like other horsey related stuff, stay tuned because I think the exercises we're going to share with you today will improve your riding forever in a good way. Guest hosting with me today is Randy Thompson. Hi, Randy.
Hey, Laura. How are you doing this beautiful morning?
I'm great, thank you. We've got a little bit of a rain here after a few days of pretty nice sun. How are things with you?
Second day of rain, heavy rain, but it's all right. It's good. It keeps away. For me, I like the sound of rain on the rooftop.
Yes, yeah. So if it's your first time here, thank you so much for joining us. And if it's not your first time here, thank you for returning and watching with us here today. So if you're watching on YouTube, remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new videos that are coming out. And if you're on Facebook, please hit the like button. And if you know somebody who should be watching this, please share the video around. We'd love for you to ask us questions. And if you have any comments or questions about what we are talking about today, please put it in the comment and question area. We'd love to hear from you. So, Randy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, when I grew up, when I was younger, I used to dream I was a horse. And then I finally got into horses, but I could always feel like a horse. So I've had a non-traditional background. I was raised in the country where we didn't know we had trainers and instructors. So it really was the horses who taught me how to connect more and to feel more, which led to my success in what I do with what I'm teaching with the horse and rider awareness programs.
Awesome. And what else is it? You're doing other things now, like you're also instructing and you're doing some other different types of work that maybe people don't realize or don't even think as a horse related business.
Right. Well, at this time during the coronavirus, everything has changed for all of us. So what I've done is I've gone more to online programs and promoting more through social media and that type of thing. And it's all developing into something that we can use to help people, because so many people are stuck at home. And the truth is, a lot of times people don't want to travel that far to do clinics and stuff. So we've just gone in another direction to be able to bring more information to people all over the world.
Yeah, so online, a lot of people are doing online. I know, well, we're doing this for sure, right? And
we were way ahead of the game, weren't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we started this quite a while ago. And it's really interesting to see what people are doing, and we really want to help people. Now, I am a Equestrian Canada senior judge, hunter, jumper, equitation, and hack, and a senior steward, and a competition coach specialist. So if you have any comments or questions, we are here to help you and get you on your way with your horses. And if you would like...
If I could add one thing to what you were saying about me, is for those, you hear horse and rider awareness, but I've been certifying and teaching professional ride instructors for over 30 years now. With the horsemanship, what is it called?
Certified Horsemanship Association.
Association. Exactly. Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, we went to that conference a few years back, right? We did we're guest featured speakers there. We did a lot of stuff
at the World Horse Expo and at the World Equestrian Games.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Maybe we could get ourselves to Tokyo in 2021.
Right.
Okay, so if you would like to have your position review, that's one of the part of the thing. So today we're going to be talking about position review. Alexandra sent in an image for us to look at, and we're going to look at that. Plus, we have some exercises for you to do on your next training session. And if you do have any questions or comments, please put it in the question area or comments. Love to hear from you. And do you want to get started, Randy?
Rock and roll.
Okay, so I'm just going to show this first. If you have a question or a comment. There's Randy Thompson for joining us here today. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen here, Randy, and we have Alexandra. So this is the picture that Alexandra sent in to us. This is a great picture. It's from the side. Really love that you have given us a picture from the side, Alexandra. Thank you so much. The only thing is it's kind of small, so I put it through my photo editor so that we could see it. I love that the way you have it from the side. And but it's kind of small, right? Randy, can you see that all right?
I've got my magnifying.
Oh, excellent. So I'm going to just say excellent photograph. Thank you for putting it from the side, but I just want to show a little bit bigger image. So I'm going to just, sorry, Randy, if I'm making it too.
That's all right.
There.
It's better where people can see it.
Is that better?
Yes.
There. So this is Alexandra. She is riding on the flat here. And generally speaking, really love this picture because it is from the side. You could get a really good feeling for what it is that she's working on. We like to start from the top of her head. We're just going to pick that up there. Right off the bat, she's got her eyes up looking forward. Really love that. Because if you look up, it helps to keep your whole body in balance. And you can see that this rider, if we took that horse, generally speaking, if we took that horse from underneath her, what do you think is going to happen to this rider, Randy, if we took that horse out from underneath her?
Well, I think she's very, she's like in a basic good balance, but if her position is very stiff.
Yeah.
So I don't think she could stand in that position.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too, Randy, what do you think that it's just the moment at which this picture was taking place? Because it looks like she's at the rising part of the rising trot.
No. Because I can see she's straight. First of all, lovely horse, lovely rider. I can see she has spent many hours working on her riding position and has really got solid basics. So what will happen is when she aligns her riding position in a different way, not that it's wrong, but in a more supple, relaxed, springy way, is that your horse is also going to start moving better underneath of you.
Yeah, so the spring, I think, is really important, particularly with this rider. You can see that, I agree with you there, Randy, that it's that she does look tense, right? It looks like she's holding her breath almost, and her shoulders are tight. And these are really, pardon?
I don't feel that she's tense. I think that's a position she has worked hard to learn.
Okay. So I think that to help this rider, well, let's just go through the review first, okay? Go ahead. Are you there? Did I lose you?
Oh, you want me to review it?
Yeah. That's why we're here.
Start at the top and we'll work our way down. So
yeah.
She's got a lovely self-carriage. You can see that she's learned how to carry herself on a horse. So this is a rider who's ready, one of those riders who's ready to go from that level to the next level. So as we watch her going around, she looks, like I said, everything looks basically okay.
Yeah, it looks a good balance.
Down, she's got her hands in the right place. Her seat is okay. But from this photo, it appears that I would say that she has a tendency to focus too hard on her riding position and stiffen herself up instead of flowing with the horse.
Right, exactly.
And that's the level she's at. It's a good thing because now the next level will take it to where not only will she look better, but so will her horse.
Exactly. So
congratulations on getting to this point.
Yeah. So this is Alexandra, and that's kind of what I was getting at before, Randy, when I said that she does look like she's kind of stiff, is that she is holding herself in this position.
Yes.
Yeah. So I agree with you, and I think too, the actual time that this photograph was taken is not very complimentary for any rider and you or horse. And usually when you try to get a picture taken, and this is when you're taking pictures of your own position or for riding, and this is what the photographers do, is they try to get the shoulder when it's going the shoulder on the here when it's going forward, when a horse's leg is going forward. And I should try and see if I can get a example of that. So if you look at any of the dressage riders, dressage show, the dressage pictures that you see in magazines, or any horses that you see magazines that are trotting, it's usually when that shoulder is moving forward, and that's what it's just the timing of this photograph. It has nothing to do with your position, really. It's just the timing of your photograph. But yeah, I really like this picture. You could see the straight lines that we like to see. Ear, shoulder, hip, heel, shoulder, knee, toe. I'd like to see this rider just close her hip a little bit more. This to me looks a little bit open. I'd like to see her shoulders just over her knees a little bit more for me. But that could be, again, that she's in the rising part of the rising trot.
Right. And I'm comfortable with her position. I'm comfortable with where her balance is for on the flat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, me too. I'm pretty happy with it. And weight down in the heels. The elbows look good here.
I feel her weight is jammed down into her heels, but that's just me looking at, because as I look down her knee, I can see it's like she's doing something. She's tightening something's tightening. Something is tightening. That's a good point. That's how to say it. There's something tense or tight about your riding position that may not even be related to your state of mind.
Okay.
This is something that you feel, whatever. We've all done forced positions. It looks almost like at this moment in time, you're trying to force the correct position, which is normal.
Yeah. Okay, so what kind of exercises would you do with this rider to help her improve?
Well, of course, with any rider that's at her level that doesn't have the flexibility or the movement or the spring in her body, it's going back to the basics of, like all the international riding schools, one thing they do is the first 5 minutes of any session, the horse is stretching and the rider is in 2-point the entire time. And what that does, it teaches you to be springy.
And I think that makes so much sense. A lot of times, when you're teaching lesson, the first part of the lesson is in your without stirrups work. But I think for me, that gets put more weight on the horse's back. And I really like you say that it's the 2-point position when you're starting out, because that gets the weight off the horse's back, and just another time for riders to strengthen their legs.
And where they can start feeling like with her, where her position is in this photo, because it might be different otherwise. She should feel her thighs going up and down, the same with her calf. You'll feel this kind of a movement in your body. You should almost feel like at the trot, you're going diagonal to diagonal, kind of. The same with the walk. And I would say at this time, it doesn't appear that she has that ability. But that could be incorrect again, because it's just a photo. But that's
just a photo. Yeah.
Needs to practice feeling. Again, spend a lot. You just do the 2-point position until you're so tired. All you can do is sink into your heels softly. But the trick is to keep it springy. You have to feel, do you have spring? That's the only question you have to ask yourself at this level. As I said, not only will it change your riding position to be more effective because you have a nice riding position, but it'll also change the way your horse is moving underneath of you, which most people don't realize.
Yeah, so you're saying go into the 2-point position so that you can feel your horse move underneath you, so that you relax the proper way and that you can feel the horse underneath you.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. And what else would you work on with this rider?
Well, there's so many things we can do, but that would be my basic thing, is to make sure that first she's got the fluidity to be able to do that, because really until she does, she can't go to the next level. And you can do all kinds of exercises. Another one that might work, and again, we'll see is the ground poles we were talking about. We're going to go deeper into those too. So we're going to talk about how you can use ground poles to improve your riding position and to create a horse that's more comfortable to ride and easier to influence.
Yeah, so that's exactly where I was aiming for that with Randy's, is to move on to our exercises that we're going to be working on here today. Alexandra, thank you so much for sending in your photographs and images. And if anybody out there who would like to have a review of their position, please send me an email, thistleridge@hotmail.com. Just going to put that up in a banner. Where is it? Here we go. There, Thistle Ridge. Send your photos into thistleridge@hotmail.com. We'd love to review your position, give you some tips on how to improve it. Just like Alexandra here. Alexandra, we recommend that you do some work at your 2-point position. And if it's too easy just at the 2-point, you could start doing them over poles. Right?
I agree completely. And what we're talking about, some people call them ground poles. There's all kinds of names for them. But the thing is with the ground poles, what they're going to do is, especially with like Alexander, is it's going to help you balance your riding position while you stay springy, because that's the goal of it. It also teaches a rider how to follow the horse's movement. It's proof of whether you have soft hands or not to be able to do these. So with ground poles, like with many things that I start with, I would recommend starting with a neck strap. Add that to what you're doing, because you might find yourself rocking and rolling all over the place. But as a result of working with the ground poles, you'll get more connected to the horse through your riding aids, and even more so, you'll learn a lot about the timing of your aids when you're creating distances, shortening or lengthening your horse's stride.
Yeah, so it's all it works together, right? It's not just do this in a vacuum. It's to do this because if you start here and you do these exercises, it's going to elevate you to a different level with your riding, because it helps you develop the base that you need to progress, because it's all about the basics. Doesn't matter what level you are. If you have good solid basics, then you can move on from there.
That's right. Now, sorry, go ahead.
I forget what I was going to say.
That's all right. That's all right. So we're going to talk a little bit more. So here's some of the things that you can do with ground poles besides teaching a horse how to pick up their feet. You can use them for lengthening and shortening your horse's strides. You can use it, you ready for this one, for teaching your horse's rhythm, which will make a big difference in the show ring. They can also help with rushy or lazy horses. There's so many benefits to ground poles. You just want to keep your sessions short. Like think maybe at the most 10 minutes.
And, so that's for the horse side of things. So many things for the horse side, and there's also the rider part, right?
Yes. Yes, it's one of those exercises that develops most of them, because most horses, when they start doing ground poles, do not have the strength to lengthen or shorten yet. So you want to keep short sessions, like I said, maybe 10 minutes, and then you slowly develop. You want to think it might take a month before the horse can do a distance where they can shorten and lengthen, and that's okay, because this is a lifelong change for you and your horse. It'll take you to the next level.
Okay, so here's some poles set out. Now, I did have 9 feet on these poles, Randy. I don't think, just a second, let me just check. So this is 9 feet, and I put them at 9 feet because you can walk, trot, and canter through these poles, and then you don't have to get out. Oopsie, I flick through them all.
She's a flicker. Well, while she's doing that, let's talk about how to set up your poles for the poles. So Laura uses a 9-foot distance because she mainly rides alone. Yeah. I would suggest if you're riding alone, create 2 patterns, just 2 poles. One set that are actually, the trot stride is actually 3 feet for ponies, shorter, up to 4 feet for a large horse. So you want to set up one pattern for your trot and walk, just 2 poles. You can have them 3.5 feet. You can have them, 7 feet, just divide it by 2. And on the other side, create your canter pattern. And with the canter, it's going to start like ponies and stuff. They'll start more at the ponies and green horses will more likely than not start at maybe a 9-10 foot stride. To compete, you have to be able to do everything in a 12-foot stride. So we want to be able to get the horse to where they can work with the shortening and the lengthening.
Okay, so I have them here at 9 feet. So if you're doing a horse, you can do between 9 and 12 feet. Now, I'd had them set up at 9 feet because I would have been trotting in. And for me, if the horse is trotting in, they go like trot, step, 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 step. So they take 2 steps in there.
Right. And I'm just talking about teaching a horse rider to lengthen and shorten strides in between the poles.
So you're talking about having 3 poles, 3 to 4 feet apart.
I would set up 2 patterns if I'm riding by myself. Just 2.
So you have like 9 feet here on this side and 3 to 4 feet on that side.
9 to 12 feet on one side.
Okay.
And then 4 feet on the other side.
Right. And then so when the horse is trotting in, they trot in, they step in the middle, step in the middle, step in the middle. Here, if you're trotting, they step, step, 2 steps in between.
Yeah, so I don't mix them up. Like I will only do trot steps in a trot stride and canter steps in a canter stride. The problem is when we start mixing up the distances, is that's when the horses start to get confused. At first, especially when you first start doing the ground poles, most horses will rush through with short, choppy strides. And then when the rider starts to lengthen, they have to remember, as you're lengthening, when you're playing with this, you want to think a longer stride is not a faster stride. And that's a mistake that many riders make. You wouldn't be the first. The other thing is to always remember to reward yourself and your horse as you're learning new ways to do this, because this is not as easy as it looks if you pay attention to the detail, because it takes time to build up the strength and the ability to match your horse's rhythm while you're doing it.
Exactly. So if you are doing your lengthening and shortening, I like what you say, Randy, is make sure that you keep the same rhythm and not rush through that. That's true. Right. Yeah, exactly right.
And most horses will, when they first start doing this, you're going to find they're going to be, they'll be tripping over the poles. They'll be stumbling. They won't know where to put their hind feet. That's just the normal.
That's true.
That's
exactly right.
Like me going over the poles.
So and Randy, in defense of my 9 foot, I know we're a little bit at odds about 9 feet or 3-4 feet. That's another reason why I do the 9 feet. One is because I'm lazy and I can walk, trot, and canter through 9 foot rails, and the other reason is because if you do the young horse or green horse, it gives them a little bit of time to figure out what the heck is happening through the trot rails, right?
Yeah,
they're on again.
The ground rails. These can also be built up into cavaletti. Once the horse has the feeling of how to lengthen and shorten in between the poles, then you can raise the level to cavaletti, and next you can actually raise it to jumps, which is
exactly
all the foundation. And the secret to your success is creating a solid foundation for both you and your horse.
So when you're putting out your walk rails, Randy, how many poles do you put out at one time? Do you put out more than 3? Do you put out 2? How do you put them out?
What I do is, before I even get on the horse, is I'll go up, if I'm working on this type of thing, depending on what I'm working on, I'll set up 1 row of 3 for the walk. I'll start with one. First, you start with 1 pole with your horse, so everybody knows. Start with 1 pole so they can get comfortable, then build it up to 2. Then build it up to 3. Don't try to do it all in one day. So just take your time when you're doing that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. Just take your time and just do one at a time. And maybe your horse can only do one this time, this training session, and then the next time introduce two, and then the next time introduce three, that type of thing.
And
Exactly.
praise the horse a lot and yourself. This is not as easy as it looks. I know it looks like 3 poles. I know you've trotted over them before, right, everybody? You've all trotted over poles. But when was the last time you consciously trotted over the poles instead of just pointing and shooting? That would be my question for your viewers.
Oh, yeah. So if people who are watching, how do you set up your trot rails? So do you have a pony, and or do you put them closer together? Do you put them farther apart? How far apart? And sometimes, Randy, when I'm teaching, I ask the question to the students: How far apart am I going to put these trot rails for your horse? And oftentimes, they are unaware of how far apart to put their trot rails. So it's really important to get that number right and to have it comfortable for your horse to start with.
If you're not sure, come back to this video. Check out your distances. Of course, they're all over the internet, but this is the best place to come.
Good point, Randy. Okay, so here is a.
Well, let me say something here, Laura. The reason I say that is because you're so gracious with the way that you handle riders who are up and coming and learning how to be able to do what they dream of being able to do. And that's truly a gift to be able to explain things at a level that they can comprehend.
Oh, well, thank you, Randy. You too. So here's a picture of a rider going over some trot rails. Pardon me, she's walking over some walk rails. I think I got 1, 2, 3 painted rails and one solid natural rail there. And it looks simple enough, but each time you go through, there's something that you can correct.
That's right. And with this diagram, because they do have the painted rails, not everybody stripes their rails, is all you have to do is keep the horse in the center of those rails. You can see the rider's off to the whatever side she's off to instead of being on the white lines. So if you have rails that have stripes, they're amazing for these exercises just to keep you straight. Of course, at first, you may not even think about straightness because your horse is going to be rocking and rolling all over the place, but that's part of the process.
That horse looks pretty straight. It's just that, and actually she's straight here.
Yes.
But
not the center.
Not the center. So there's, you can make it as easy or as difficult as that you would like to do. And if you are introducing your horse, well, maybe this would be acceptable. If you are getting ready to go to a horse show and you need to go to the middle of each jump and make sure that you ride to the center of each jump, each and every step, then this is a great way to tell if you are, in fact, riding in the middle of each jump.
I agree.
Perfect. How are we doing for
time? I like how in your diagram you have the use of, she's also, another important thing when we're talking about how you can develop your skills, because basically we have a lot of hunter jumper type of riders here, and that's great. But is that part of the course is always curves and circles. So where she's added the poles here, can you put your diagram up again?
The diagram?
Of the poles that are spaced apart like a circle, like a fan?
Oh, yeah. I was getting to that. Okay, so just 1 minute and I'll get to that. Yeah.
And again, this is something like you won't do this the first week with a horse that doesn't know how to do poles. So with the exercise we're going to show you next, what it does is it teaches the horse how to use their inside hind. Let's see if we can get it up here.
Yeah, I'm just flipping through my diagram.
Because the horse's movement changes, especially going around the curves, because that's when many riders start interfering with their horses to get them into the next direction instead of flowing with them. So you'll see this diagram right here, how she's got the curves. Again, you'd aim at the center. Now, some people space them out, like the smaller ends that come together there, they'll create like a trot distance. And then as you get more to the middle, it'll be a canter distance. Now, the secret to doing your curves and circles, once you get the hang of this, because again, do not do this if you're a beginner or you haven't done the straight lines first. You have to do this afterwards. But the secret to doing a curve on a horse is, the reality is you can use it to show off your horse to the judge, right, Joe? Right, right, because you're a judge, you see it all the time. Those curves matter. The trick,
yeah, for sure.
You might need to have somebody watch you for this part, but the trick is the horse's inside legs should be on the same track when they're moving right. So their
Okay,
left
so
front,
so could you explain that?
yes.
Very important that you explain that.
So going to the left, which will be the horse's more challenging side, you want to
This
keep
way.
the left front and the left hind on the same track. What most people do is, as they're doing a circle, is their horse's shoulders will pop to the outside instead of staying to the inside. So to be able to do this, what you do is you start thinking of positioning your horse's shoulders more than their head. And that's the next level of riding. If you're a beginner or a lower level rider, you can't do this yet because your hands and aids aren't coordinated enough. But those who are can take their horse to the next level by thinking the horse's inside hind legs need to be on the same track for them to be balanced and to move right.
Okay, so let me just draw that here. So this is the horse's front hoof, horse's outside front hoof, horse's inside hind, horse's outside hind. So that's exactly the way it should go all the way through, through like this. So what you're saying, Randy, I'm just going to draw a picture for people, is that I'm going to draw my circle again. This is not how I would really ride a dressage circle, everybody, but this is what.
Or a hunter circle. This is any kind of circle you ride.
my circle be rounder. Okay, so what you're saying is that the riders often allow the horse to escape through the shoulder, so they're kind of like this, and their hind legs are
wherever. And sometimes it'll be the front side will be outside of the circle, or other times on the inside, the haunches will be in or out. But normally,
I think a lot of times what I see is that it's like this, you know. Well, that's pretty. It's you know, their horses pop their shoulders to the outside, and then their haunches come in like this. So this means that they're not tracking correctly on the circle. I don't know if anybody if that helped anybody or not. Yes. But when you're watching the horse's track, if this is the track of the circle, then their inside hind should be following this pattern, and their outside aid should be following this. Often what times too is that they often throw their hindquarters out, or like what you said, they often pop the shoulder out so they don't track. Okay, before we go on, Randy, I'm going to interrupt you there. I just wanted to say Kathleen says she puts her trot rails out a little further for my horse because he's 16.3. So she's a big horse, big hunter, big mover. So she puts her trot rails out a little bit. How far apart, Kathleen, do you put your trot rails? I'd like to know. And Kevin says, really enjoying the video. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Kevin, so much. Really appreciate you watching and making a comment. There. So let's go back to this circle again, Randy. So how far apart here would you have? How do you know how far apart to measure these poles?
Well, in the beginning on the circle, again, you want to start like with the straight line, just simple. So for example, you might just have, you're not going to worry about shortening and lengthening. So you'll just stay with the basic stride. Again, that might be, depending on if you have a pony or a 18-hand horse, it might be 3 feet for the trot. It might be, basically they go 3 to 4 feet. So you want to think the center ones, maybe you want to have 4 feet so the horse learns to step over those at the trot and the walk. And then the middle one, you could make a longer distance. And then, of course, on the outside, you can make an even bigger circle.
Yeah.
So there's 3 circles you can do inside of one, as long as you take a measuring thing out there with you, or unless you're good at stepping off distances, because the distance is so important. If you don't have the right distance, you're going to confuse your horse. They're going to start taking short, choppy steps, and you'll go backwards in your training.
So here's how I set mine up, Randy, and this really helped me, is that I put a center thing here, and I get a lunge line.
Oh, I love lunge lines.
And I do this lunge line, and I make the lunge line, and I do the lunge line at the center of the poles.
Yes. I love using a, thank you for bringing that up. I didn't know if I could into that.
So, but that makes sure that this is the center of the pole. I put a pole down there, then I measure along this arc here.
And actually, I would
the next pole.
I would lunge a horse over this before I rode it over for my own safety. That's what I would do.
And then I measure this here so that this is the 4 feet.
And you can mark off on your lunge line however you want. You can measure the exact size. I can use it. For example, what you were saying, thank you for leading into this, Laura, was that I'll take a rider over this on a lunge line because I can show the rider how the horse's front end should feel. So as they're going around, we take away their reins. We just give them their, neck strap where they can hold themselves into position. As they're going around the curve, what happens is, I forgot where I was going with that now. Dang it. And that was important. So I just had a cat jump up on my computer.
You get so excited about the lunge line. You forgot about it. Oh my God.
So what you do
lunge lines.
You can have somebody lunge you while you're doing it. Even if they don't know how, they can just stand in the center and keep the right distance. You're going to be shocked at how they're going to be shocked. It's probably better to have a more experienced person, because every time that horse's shoulder pops out and their head pops out, it's up to the person lunging the horse to bring they're going to have to bring that head in enough to bring the shoulders so that the front and back feet are on the same track. And at first it'll seem like a lot to the horse and the rider, but so my last experience with was a national champion with dressage. We had to do 15-meter circles, 20-meter circles, 30-meter circles, whatever, right? So we use the lunge line to teach the riders how to have the correct feeling for a circle of that size. And they're always surprised at how much they have to bring the horse's shoulders over.
Yeah,
thank you.
Exactly.
Lunge. That's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up, Laura.
Yeah, well, it's for me, it's the best way of setting up the poles properly. So that, they're going to be stepping 2 steps or 1 step in between each pole because they're all set up the same. And then you can use the inside part of these poles right here, the inside part. You can use that for your shortening of your step. And then the middle part, exactly what it is when you get to the middle part, and not what I did. But in the middle part is your regular working trot. And then if you want to do your lengthened step, could be at the outside part of your circle. And if you've measured them out properly and with the help of that lunge line, then that it's going to be fine.
And at first, your horse will start rushing over them, stumbling, the usual stuff. But with time, they'll get to where you and the horse will be able to balance elegantly as you go through the patterns.
Yeah. So the other thing is, if you do set them up like this, is you can use this in a pattern. And Randy, you mentioned this before about the hunter courses being a series of straight lines and turns. Then you can incorporate this pattern into your riding schedule and your riding here, because you've got a curve and a straight line set up. And you can just do a circle, and if you set it up, you do your circle, and then you can even do a turn, go straight across this one, come across and do this, and use them in a pattern like this even.
Yep, do a figure 8.
Yeah.
Anything. And this is, again, for those of you who are competing, this is the foundation you need to succeed.
Very simple exercise. And if you have
not so simple, baby, but it looks simple, doesn't it?
Well, you can make it as easy as you like. That's right. It's not that simple, but you can make it as simple as you like. If you're teaching beginner type riders, or novice riders, you can make it a steering exercise. But if you're a more advanced rider or you're trying to school your horse, then you can make it more difficult by saying exactly what we were talking about. Is your horse in the right place? Is your horse following with its hindquarters and its front end? Is your horse bending properly? Is it stepping properly? And then you can, as you say, make it even more difficult or easy as you like to. That's awesome. Excellent. So what else do we have here? So I wanted to show from the front. So you have cavalettis, Randy. You like using cavalettis, right?
But I
I
always start from ground poles, though.
Yeah, so you start with ground poles. So we have the ground pole exercise here. Let's do that.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about shortening and lengthening, because you should be able to shorten and lengthen without your horse's rhythm changing, without them getting fussy, without them. And it just takes time. You just slowly go through them.
Excellent. That's right. And that's another really good point, Randy. Thanks for bringing that up, is that the shortening and lengthening, you can use those over poles. Really good. That's the way I was taught how to do the extension with my horses, actually, long time ago. I'm just flipping through my things here to find that one without the distances on it.
On the poles, what you can do is, if you're working with distances, or even if you're a dressage, it doesn't matter what discipline you're riding, you can focus on lengthening and shortening the horse's strides. Even between fence posts, you can look at your fence posts and count like 6 down and say, okay, so I'm going to lengthen for 6 steps, and then I'm going to shorten for, I'm medium for short, for whatever, 5, 6 steps, and then back into a lengthening again. And you can do that anywhere in the ring, as long as you have a visual an object to look at, so that you can always be sure you have a definite place where you're going to do your transitions.
That's true. I like that, using a fence post or something. You really don't need a lot of things. But if you do have your poles set out and you do want to use your poles, you can set out a pole. For example, am I showing this here? Yep. So you have this set up. Instead of having the 3 or 4 poles along the side, remove this one and remove this one. So you have a pole here and a pole here. Just 2 poles, then count the number of steps in between the 2 poles, which down the one long side.
And if it helps you, some people will play music to get the rhythm. If you have a rhythm that's like a 2-beat, 4-beat, canter rhythm, and play that the 10 minutes you're playing on these exercises, it'll help you establish the rhythm that you need. Of course, I like Metronomes. You can get them on eBay for $10. They're handheld. They're only about this size.
Yeah. They're great. You can clip them to your belt. They're perfect.
Right. And I use those a lot, to help riders, because the rhythm is important. I'm sure you agree with that, Laura, as a judge.
Oh, sure.
And I judged at one time, but I'm no longer judging anymore.
Yeah, so if people don't have it in metronome and they want to do this at home, you suggested a couple ways. One is to put music on. And what is it about the music that will help you get your rhythm?
Well, there's something about music that kind of relaxes horses and riders. So if you play some music while you're doing it, somehow it teaches you to dance with the horse.
Yeah.
Which takes because people will get really retentive as they're going through the pattern. We get super focused. That's when we start developing, like we saw with the rider, the photo earlier, it appears that we'll get a little tense, which of course makes our horses tense too. But it's just a normal part of the process. But this is good. This is actually good for Alexander too, because these patterns will help you get the feeling of having that flexibility that did not appear in the photo. No big deal. Yeah, you may be very flexible away from the photo, but these will help with a rider who is not sure if they're springy in their joints, or for a rider that wants to make sure they're following the movement of the horse instead of interfering as they lengthen and shorten their strides.
Yeah. Yeah, I think exactly right. So, So you start by lengthening using the poles. And so if you do, for me, if this is what you have set up and you are either counting from a post in your arena or a certain place on your arena, I like to use poles that the horse can step over and then trot through.
I prefer the poles too. And like I said, right now I'm more focused in the dressage world. But let me tell you what I do with these dressage horses. They go over the ground poles and the cavaletti because they improve their movement so much, like nothing else can do.
Right. So if you have two poles set up here and here, you trot through at a normal trot, a working trot, and you say you get 10 trot steps. If you're lengthening through there, how many steps should you get?
Well,
you should get
depends on the horse, right?
Yeah, it depends on the horse, but you should get fewer steps. So if you're getting 10 steps at a working trot, and then you want to lengthen your stride in between, then you're going to be counting fewer steps because the stride is going to be longer.
That's correct.
And if you're doing shortening your steps, then you're going to count more steps.
Right.
And it depends on your horse and your horse's stride, whether or not you do 10 steps or...
I don't remember what strides they're doing. Once they get comfortable doing it, if you could have somebody watching, that would be really good, because, you know, the horse is supposed to, when they're using the ground poles correctly, what they'll do is they'll lift their backs, stretch their neck, and engage their hind legs better, which leads to a more balanced horse.
Yes, exactly.
But you won't get that at the beginning, I promise you.
Yeah, so they have to make sure that they're set up properly and that you're counting properly. And you would like to either have somebody videotape you or somebody watching you who has got a keen eye and a knowledgeable eye, so that you can see whether or not the horse is actually flexing those joints that we want to see them flex: their hip, their stifle, their hock, and their fetlock in the back, and really engaging that.
Yeah, because it teaches them to jump better, I think, for jumping.
Sure, it makes them use themselves properly, and it's a strengthening exercise for the horse too, right?
Yep, and for the rider's brain to keep a horse in balance and to think every step, is my horse going quick or is it waiting for me? Because most horses will take you right through the pattern, and they should be waiting for your aids instead of taking you.
Okay, so then once after they go through the poles on the ground and the cavaletti. Okay, so we're going up the poles on the ground. Here's the poles on the ground, rider. Simple poles. Then what can we work on after that, Randy? We're taking them through another session. I've got another diagram here of some cavaletti type thing. This looks kind of wonky, and I think it might be from where the photo was taken. And Kathleen says, thank you, Kathleen, for another comment. Yes, music. I will make myself post without stirrups for a full song and try to push for more. Good for you, Kathleen. Love to hear that. That's a great idea.
Kathleen, if you want to really challenge yourself, because you sound like a rider that's had a little bit of experience, 2 stirrups is easy. Dropping 2 stirrups.
Yeah.
If you're like most riders, your weaker side is your left side. So I'm sure your horse is safe, right? You want to make sure your horse is safe first. Then try to do them without your right iron, because you will cry at first because you'll feel like you can't ride, and that's normal. It's because your body's been off balance for so long. It happens to all of us. Try it without 1 stirrup. This is not for beginners, those who are watching. You have to have a safe, dependable horse to do this. Drop your right stirrup. You can whine. I'll probably hear it. Everybody does. But it'll strengthen your riding position and center you in ways that will only make you a more effective rider. And of course, that changes the way your horse moves.
Yeah, it gets you in balance, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes. You're saying your right stirrup. Now, why is it your right stirrup?
Most people are stronger on, that's a great question, by the way. Most people are stronger on their right side, their right hand and their right leg. So what they do is unconsciously, they put all of their weight to the right side of their riding position. And you can tell, and it happens, what happens is that it changes the way you even do the posting trot, by the way, Kathleen. You'll notice your posting trot is different because, like many riders, you've probably been doing a posting trot leading with your right hip forever. So what'll happen when you drop the stirrup is your left leg and hip are going to whine a lot, because now they'll have to come forward and be above your leg instead of sliding wherever they may not go. So that's what I would do with the more advanced riders like Kathleen, is challenge her even more, because she, probably at the point where she kind of points and shoots as she goes over everything. But what this will do is it'll help you maintain that and work on your riding position in ways you won't know about until you try it.
That's excellent. Yeah. So I remember a few years ago, I think you mentioned that in one of the other programs we were doing, Randy, and I started just with like 5 minutes or so when I was out hacking. I would just drop, even at the walk on a hack on the way home. It's like, wow, I didn't realize I was that crooked. And
you tipped over all of a sudden you're over there in like 30 seconds, right? How did I do that?
Yeah.
And so
the other thing that I find too, Brandy, I don't know if you found this as well, is that I ask people to swap their stirrup leathers over because they think their stirrups are level. And I say, okay, just swap your stirrup leathers over. And it's amazing that one is maybe a little bit longer or shorter than the other one. And that's enough to say, wow, this is weird. So switching your stirrup leathers over is another good thing.
And measure them. At least once a year, you need to measure the length of your stirrups because those leathers stretch.
Yeah. So I say, that's a good point too. I tell my guys to swap their stirrup leathers over every month. So that, because we're always mounting off the left-hand one, so it's going to be stretching a millimeter or so. So I just say, just swap them over. Kathleen says, I never tried it, but will now. Thank you, Kathleen. We would like to hear what is happening and how that's going to work out for you.
Come back and tell us your experience with riding with one stirrup and how it's changed everything. And take your time, because like with everything in the horse world, it looks easier, sounds easier than what it really is.
Dropping one stirrup on canter circles has really helped my leaning habit. I'll alternate inside and outside stirrup, and it helps to find a centered position. Exactly. Thanks, Lindy. Yeah, and I want to add that Lindy has been riding the last couple of weeks with a neck strap, and she told me that it helps her keep her reins, because she had the open finger, thinking open fingers was really soft. So I just took a piece of baler twine, actually. It
works the best because it bites the rider's hands. So we're talking about neck straps. We'll digress for just a minute. So what I do is you can do leather ones, or you can do what I found that works, because I use them in the instructor programs that I teach, is a piece of twine. And the reason is it doesn't hurt the horse, right, Laura? But what it
doesn't hurt the horse, and Lindy rides thoroughbreds, and it I was thinking, it might hurt the horse's neck, but no, it's fine.
And what it does is, most riders have an unconscious tendency to lean on the reins, type of thing. So what the twine does, that's why I like the twine, is it will ride without gloves. It'll bite into your hand.
You're evil.
You will feel the twine, and that's your signal that, number one, either your reins are in the wrong position, or number two, and Lindy, you might be ready for this now, many times when your hands go out of position, it's because your seat has fallen back in the saddle. So what a neck strap does is two things. It can teach a rider how to be softer on the reins, and it also teaches a rider that.
Excellent. So we got about 5 minutes left, and I want to know if anybody has any questions they want to ask us, because we'll leave that open for people who would like to ask questions. And I wanted to show this image here is the Cavaletti, and I don't have Cavaletti, so we use this. So you use Cavaletti, Randy, and you prefer Cavaletti. And why do you prefer Cavaletti?
Why do I prefer Cavaletti?
Over these
Well,
cross-dress?
they're basically the same thing. So it's not that I prefer one over the other. I like the Cavaletti because if I have Cavaletti, they're just easy.
Yeah.
Ground poles are, or you can set it up like this. There's no reason you can't create the same thing with your courses if you want to. See, the problem is, it's not really a problem. You have to move those courses all the time. So if you set up a combination of 2 or 3 in a row of jumps, remember, you don't have to move the jumps, which is, you can do that. But that's the thing, is you'll have to move them, and the ground poles and the Cavaletti are just easier to move.
That's true. True enough. Okay, so is there anything else that you'd like to add, Randy, about anything?
No, but I'd like to thank everybody for their amazing questions, for taking the time to interact with us and leaving your comments with us. And as you go through practicing, oh, look, we have a horse cantering down there, Laura. You going to add that? This is a horse cantering through the.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm not showing that.
Oh, no, it's not showing on the screen yet.
Okay, you can see it.
Well,
oh, I see. You can see it there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, just a second. That's what I wanted to get to.
But
so that's what I was wanting to get to the Cavaletti. Here we go. So
this ground poles and Cavaletti for even gaited horses to improve their gaits, and people think it's impossible. I've had non-gaiting horses learn how to gait by using the right distances. Okay, here we have a canter.
Yeah, you see, he's rushing through that a bit, so we'd like for him just to slow down a bit. And those are, I think, around 10 feet apart.
Nice rider.
Yeah. She's nice and soft, isn't she?
Yeah. Who is this?
It's a woman up in Renfrew.
Oh, nice.
So we do have her going at the trot as well. We'll do show a picture of her at the trot.
She needs to take that cup down.
Yeah.
Even though you don't, if those of you who have jumps, even if the jump is in the center of the ring like this one is, you should always take the jump cups off if you're not using them. That's just the way it is in the real world.
So we're going to show you, this is their starting at the trot, and you can see he kind of breaks into the canter, but you can see that he's got to really lift and work himself. And this horse is just coming off is just starting in a program.
Right. I would call this horse green over Cavaletti or fences.
Yep.
Which is okay. It's a great place to be because he's steady, he's consistent.
But you could see he's had trouble with it at the trot, so he broke into the canter that made it easier for him.
But wait until you see how this exercise develops your horse's movement. This horse could have a really long stride. So you can see the potential there. That horse is actually, at first he's bringing his hocks. If you can see this on horses, if you watch the horses around you, if their hocks are moving up and back, they're not moving correctly. The hocks should move down and towards the front of the horse's legs, to the front legs. And that's when a horse is actually using their hind legs. This horse is green, so I don't expect it to carry its balance. And it doesn't know where to put its legs exactly yet. But that's exactly what happens. This is what's going to happen to all of you. Most of your horses are going to stumble over them.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
In the beginning, anyway. Okay, so we are out of time. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Enjoyed sharing this video. Thank you so much for Alexandra for sharing her image with us and getting a position review. If you'd like to have your own position review, please send me an email with your image.
I'd like to hear back from Alexandra if she'll reach out to you again and tell her what we've shared with her to find out if it's made a difference for what she's doing with her horse.
Yes. You hear that, Alexandra? If you would like to send us an email, I will contact her and ask her for an update. And see what she has to say about that. So if you have any other questions, please send me an email, thistleridge@hotmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, Randy?
Well, stay tuned for her next show. What are you doing next, Laura? Do you have another guest for next
Oh,
week?
I do very much. I'm getting somebody, the woman who won the racetrack rehab program,
Neat.
Kendall, and Catherine, and Joey, and all kinds of other people lined up.
Oh, great. Yes, so
Yeah.
this is the place to go. For those of you who are out there watching this, make sure you stay tuned in or watch the replays. And to make this even more valuable for all the work that Laura puts into this, it's easy. Just press the like. If you're on YouTube, press the thumbs up, add a comment, because what it does is it spreads it out to other people who need this information.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here. Now, go use this stuff and go hug your horse. Thanks now. Bye.
Good day, everybody. Bye.